Hello everyone, welcome back to Power of Attorney. Every week on the show, we ask our viewers to send in their questions about the topic. You send those to us via Facebook, Twitter, and email, and we've received lots of wonderful questions about this topic that we're talking about, divorce. It's huge, and it affects so many people, and our guest today is attorney Stacey Williams Marcel. We've learned so much. We have a question now from a viewer. She or he has brought up prenups. Is a prenuptial agreement always upheld if a couple divorces? Talk a little bit about that. How common are those prenuptial agreements?
Define what it is,
yes.
too.
A prenuptial agreement is a contract that you prepare prior to your marriage and set it up as the way you want your community property. As we talked earlier, community can be shared. You can also say, I want to keep my property and you keep your property. The key on whether or not a prenuptial agreement is upheld is spend the time and money of getting a proper prenuptial agreement before you go. The cases that I've handled where I've knocked out community property prenuptial agreements is because they didn't take the time to prepare them properly. If you have a good agreement and it says what you want and can be enforced under the laws, it's a very tricky area of the law, it will be upheld. And basically what it does is if someone doesn't want to share community and doesn't want the issue of the debt shared, they can say this is mine and this is yours, what you earn is mine and what I earn is.
And that can be effective against third parties. In other words, against that credit card company, against others. And the Louisiana law will allow marrying couples to say, we're getting married, but this is not going to be a community property regime or setup.
Exactly.
And so if the husband has a gambling problem, that's going to be his debt, and if he runs up a big debt, they'll only be able to collect the money from him and garnish his paycheck, but not the wife's paycheck.
Exactly.
Do you see a lot of these? Do you see a lot of
I do. I see some, and it just depends. It's not, I wouldn't say every day, but I do see, and I've seen more over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and you know, there are a lot of resources out there that are available online. So when you talk about getting a good prenuptial agreement, what do you say to people? I mean, I may think that I have a good prenuptial agreement, and maybe not until we have to go through this process do I find out that it really isn't.
Louisiana law is different than a lot of states, and to me, you need to be very careful with the forms, because sometimes what you think is in the form may not be there, and that's what a lawyer can help you with.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add to that, that you see a lot of advertisements. You can, spend $100 and get all kinds of legal forms that help you do everything from, I get a divorce to set up a company and whatever. It's kind of you get what you pay for, and some of these companies are national. If you're getting a piece of paper that you print out on your home computer and you're filling in the blanks yourself and you don't have a licensed Louisiana attorney double checking it to make sure that it's going to pass a challenge in court, be very careful, and it just makes sense.
And what people have to realize is every situation is different. You may have certain assets that need to be protected a certain way, or you may have certain things that in a business that you want to protect, and that's what an individual contract can do.
So what I'm hearing from both you and from John is that based on how that agreement is structured, it may or may not be upheld.
Exactly.
In court.
Exactly.
Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, well, here's our next question. How are assets divided between partners in a divorce if there is no prenuptial agreement?
As we talked earlier, community property, you share equally in the debts and you share equally in the assets. The only thing that we didn't talk earlier about is if you own things before you were married, or debts or asset, those are your separate property. If you inherit property, that is your separate property, even if it's inherited during the marriage, and that will not be split at the time of the divorce.
So we have community property and we have separate property here in Louisiana. Okay, our next question. If I get divorced from my husband, will I automatically receive alimony, or do I have to ask for it?
You have to ask for it.
You have to ask for it.
And there are different types of alimony. There's interim alimony, which is if you file and wait the year to finalize your divorce, you automatically usually get interim alimony, but you have to ask for it still, and it's based on the standard of living you had during the marriage. If you want final support after that, you have to specifically ask for that. So you need to have both interim and final support asked for in your petition, or you won't get it.
And I guess during this particular time, it's not always the wife that's asking for alimony.
Yes.
In some cases, it's the husband.
That is correct.
That is asking for the alimony. But you are entitled to the amount of money that will enable you to continue your lifestyle.
just during the period until the divorce is final. After the divorce is final, they look at what you can earn, and they also look at fault. That is the only time fault comes into play. To get it after, to be able to receive spousal support after the divorce is final, you have to be free from fault. The fault of your spouse doesn't matter. A lot of people think, well, he did this or she did this, so I get alimony. No, you have to be free from fault. The other party's fault is not at issue. That's the no-fault situation in Louisiana.
Yeah, and just to add to that, when they're making a determination whether the husband should pay support to the wife or the wife should pay support to the husband, either during the time the divorce, before it's final or afterwards, and assuming no fault on the person asking for the support, you look at how much money each made.
Exactly.
If wife makes a lot more money than the husband, then the wife, during the time of the litigation before the divorce is final, is going to owe some support to the husband. Afterwards, it depends on a lot of things, but it depends on who made more money. If one spouse is home with young kids and has to be there to raise the kids, that is another consideration too, correct?
That is. There's all kinds of factors that play into spousal support. There's a schedule for child support, but spousal support is a little more variable, and they look at what you need to survive, not your lifestyle after the divorce is final. For the year, that period of time where they're trying to make the transition, they leave you at the standard you were, but after the divorce, it's based on what you need, not what you're used to.
And that really is based on what the judge feels. It's the
It
judge's
is.
discretion?
What ends up happening is you have to show what your needs are, you have to show what your issues are, and as John pointed out, if you have children at home under the age of 5, they look at you differently, and they will support you until those children are in school, if you are the caretaker of those children. So it just depends. It's a very variable situation where you have to work on getting the information to the court to say this is why I need spousal
But not so much with child support. It's
child support, you look at those things, but child support, there's a formula. Your gross income, the spouse's gross income, they put them together, put them in a formula, and they come up with the basic child support. And to that, they add other things such as school tuition, extracurricular activities. The only things that are definitely added to basic child support per the schedule are health insurance premiums, unreimbursed medical over $250 per child, and if there are, those I think are the main two things.
And even if you are awarded alimony, things could change, and that could affect the amount of alimony, or if you will even continue to receive alimony, correct?
What I find is what the courts are doing is allowing a transition period for you to get on your feet. And then after that, they look at spousal support as maybe not needed.
It's not needed. And then certainly if you remarry, then
You automatically lose your spousal
you
support.
automatically lose it. Okay.
If by remarriage or death of the spouse paying, you don't get any more spousal support.
No more. Okay.
And also, one other thing, because
Yes.
a lot of people don't realize this, and this is a new change in law, if you cohabit with someone as if you are married to them, your spousal support ends too. That is a new change in the law in the last couple of years, because so many people were not getting married
Right.
and just living with someone. And if you have to have a court hearing, but if you can prove that they're living with someone, you can
As boyfriend, girlfriend.
as
Or
if they-
significant others. these
Exactly.
days.
You can end the spousal support.
You can. That's very interesting. Oh, we were talking about, this whole issue of people living together. The divorce rate is actually going down a little bit, but that is because people are not getting married as often because they are living together.
Exactly, and I think that's what the statistics are showing.
Yeah. Okay. Another question here is, if my spouse and I agree to divorce amicably, do we really need an attorney, or do attorneys have to get involved?
I would suggest hiring an attorney for the limited thing of getting the agreement that you have in proper writing and presenting it to the court. And a lot of people have the misconception that an attorney can represent both parties. That is against our ethical standards. We can only represent one party that's in opposition. But I think what happens a lot of times is one party will get an attorney, they will draft the documents, and then the other party may have another attorney just review it to make sure it protects him.
Good idea.
And that's what I recommend to people, and that can be very inexpensive. That's why I say if you work things out ahead of time and come up with an agreement, it makes it easy.
On that note, and I want to make sure we mention this, and we're going to put it on our website as well, people who have very little money, but they need to get a divorce, and maybe they're not so friendly. Maybe that communication is lacking between them. The Southeast Louisiana Services used to be called NOLAC, I believe. The local law school, university law clinics, they will do certain divorces that are not too complicated at either for free or very reduced fare for people who go to them. So we'll put information on our website about that.
And
so there are
good.
options for people who simply can't afford, and it's not $15,000 to get a simple divorce where you're working stuff out.
Right.
And mediation also helps drive down the cost.
Exactly, exactly. If the people can sit down and work things out, it will save them a lot of money.
A lot of money, yeah. And so in terms of time, I know that we talked about this a little bit earlier, but for people, who are just wondering, how long is it going to take? I know it does depend on each circumstance, but let's say we do try to work things out. I mean, 6 months, a year, typically, what's the average amount of time?
If you work things out within the year, if you have children, you should be able to work things, have everything finalized. Because there are ways that if you decide how to divide your property even before the divorce, that you can accomplish that and get it over with, and then the divorce is the final step. Sometimes you have to wait, if there is not an agreement, till after the divorce is final to begin working. So at least a period of time after the divorce is final may take to divide the community, and that's where things could get drawn out. But most of the time, within a year and a half, I would say, if everyone cooperates, you should have everything worked out.
Well, I can't believe it, but we're out of time. The time has just flown by. We've learned so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank
I hope that
you.
you'll come back.
Thank you. I
Thank
enjoyed
you.
being here with y'all.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for being
much.
here.
And thank you all out there for watching. We want to encourage you to visit us online at johnredmondpoa.com or jrpoa.com, and you can sign up for our mailing list. You'll get every episode of the show delivered to your inbox, information about upcoming shows, prizes, and so much more.
And remember, you can watch every episode of the show online, and don't forget to watch us, to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, email the show with your legal questions and comments. We're going to have a webinar, a special extra lanyard interview section with Stacey, and we'll see you next time on John Redmann, Power of Attorney.